All right, hello everyone. My name is Francisco Avila, and today we're going to be going over the intro to coding live in Python. This is um this is a funny quote that I learned, and that to today still makes me laugh. It's debugging is twice as hard as writing the code in the first place. Therefore, if you write the code as cleverly as possible, you're by definition not smart enough to debug it. I've been stuck in that place a couple of times where I write a program to the best of my ability, something goes wrong, and then I'm trying to figure out what goes wrong. But because it's again to the best of my ability, the actual bug or mistake is out of my scope. So again, my name is Francisco Avila. I'm the Intro to Code and Live instructor. Currently, I'm also teaching Sierra Platoon during the day. And I'm a Code Platoon graduate myself. I graduated in Romeo cohort not too long ago, almost 6 months ago since I graduated. I'm a Marine Corps veteran. I just recently, Semper and I just recently got out of the Marine Corps, actually 6 months ago as well. I attended Code Platoon during my Skills Bridge program, and it was really great. Honestly, it's a great program to attend to, and I strongly recommend it to everyone. If anyone needs to reach out to me and you don't have Slack available, you could reach out to me at my email at francisco@codeplatoon.org. Just to give a little bit of background about myself and what I did in the Marine Corps, I was a mortarman by trade, spent 4 years in the infantry, became a section leader pretty quickly. And after becoming a section leader, I went and became a combat instructor. And I did my last enlistment in the Marine Corps as a combat instructor before exiting and attending Code Platoon. All right, so about Code Platoon. So Code Platoon is a nonprofit coding boot camp for veterans and spouses. Hopefully, everyone here is either a veteran or a spouse of a veteran or active duty member. Code Platoon is a 14-week immersive learning program. You learn how to use Python, JavaScript. You learn how to use development frameworks such as Django or React for front end. Django kind of just works with your server and your database, and you also learn about PostgreSQL to be able to handle the data for your individual applications. After completing the program, the veteran or military spouse will be hireable as a junior full stack web developer and eligible for an internship through one of our generous host companies. Some programming experience is required to get in, and you guys are getting your programming experience right now, so this is perfect. Code Platoon, every cohort has partners who will actually offer internships to everybody, and it's been fantastic. There's a lot of people who, before they graduate, they already know where they're going to be heading out to. They have their employment set up. They go. One of the biggest companies that keeps coming up is A-Flight, and A-Flight continues to offer a partnership with Code Platoon and an internship that leads into a full-time employment. These companies will take you in. They'll work with you, get you up to speed with the full stack of their individual process. And then after you're with them for a while, then they'll hire you full time, and you'll be able to work your way through the company as a full stack developer. Awesome. Does anyone have any questions about Code Platoon? The company is called A-Flight.
Yeah, how do you spell that?
A-Flight.
Are you say eighth flight or eighth flight? Got it.
A-Flight. Yes, I'm sorry.
I have a question, and I may not have heard you, or you
Yeah,
may
of
have gone
course.
over this and I wasn't paying attention because I was currently emailing you. Do they help with job placement, or is that more like you know, you can do the code platoon, the thing that's on the screen right now, and then you hope that you get there before other people do?
No, Code Platoon actually helps with job placement. They have a career services program that's voluntarily for everybody who attends the boot camp. After you complete the program, you'll get resume coaching. You'll get coaches from actual tech companies who work as software engineers that will help you to build your resume, build your projects. And I'm sorry, Alvaro, I think your mic is on,
He's the
and
teacher.
you have a little bit of background noise as well. Okay, thank you. As I was saying, they'll go into your resume coaching. Once they get all your resume coaching, we have Rich Luby on the team. and he will go out there and hunt down any type of opportunities, partnerships, companies who are currently looking for new software engineers. There's some companies that are specifically looking for veterans, and Rich Luby will make the connection between the current cohort that's being trained and the company that's looking for new software engineers. They'll then work with you for 6 months after completing the boot camp. And if you don't get placed after those 6 months, which is very rare, they'll also continue to work with you and try to help you in any way they can possibly do so. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
No problem at all. Alvaro, did you have a question? Okay, fantastic. Moving on. All right, a little prior experience of coding. If not, no big deal. Anyone interested in learning to code, interested in attending a coding boot camp like Code Platoon. So, I just want to make sure that I go over this real quick. Coding is fantastic. It's a great skill set to learn. We see it every day. Everything that we touch nowadays depends on technology, and anything that runs on technology or has a screen on it is code. All right. It's a great skill set. I definitely learn it. Currently, I have a little one. She's 16 months old right now, but as soon as she can learn and speak and I can actually interact with her, I'm sitting her in front of a computer and teaching her how to code as much as I can. All right, so myths about programming. You have to be a math wizard. You have to be an introvert loner to be a good coding. You just sit at your desk and code all day. Programming is boring. One programming language is better than the other. You only need to know one programming language. All right, so these are all myths. You have to be a math wizard. No, you don't. All you have to do is be able to identify a problem, right? If you're able to identify a problem, the rest is easy. It's just coming up with the solution, and there's no need to be good at math. If you ever have to make an algorithmic solution that takes in a lot of math input, we have the entire internet to be able to look at different sources and figure out the best way to come up with a solution for that algorithm. For being an introvert, a loner, or be good at coding, I mean, I don't, to my experience, everyone that I've met has not been an introvert or a loner. And then the sit at your desk all day, definitely not. I myself have not stopped hiking since I left the Marine Corps. I like going on runs with my dog, and we try to make a habit between our little family to go on really long walks at the very minimum every day. There's no reason that you should be sitting all day and coding. Programming is boring. That part's definitely false. I don't know, it's just so fun to be able to put together a project, see how that project comes together, and just seeing how different pieces of the puzzle fall together in the way you want them to. And especially once you start creating your own things, it gives you a little rush. One programming language is better than the other. Also not true. Programming, I think, but on itself is not necessarily the language that you're learning. It's more the ability to put your thoughts into code. Again, the main part of programming is being able to identify a problem. After that, the language that you use to solve that problem really doesn't necessarily matter in the overall spectrum. There's sometimes where it will matter, but most of the time, as long as you can use a language to come up with a solution, that's all you really need. And you only need to know one programming language. It's also false, because in order to make an entire application, you may need different frameworks, and need to know different types of interactions between those two frameworks. All right, so truths about programming. You'll need to know the basic math operations. You have to be able to work on a team and communicate well. And as we all here know, we've worked with other individuals throughout our life, so that shouldn't be a problem. Most of your time is researching how to solve the problem, and your code can impact millions. Not boring at all. Some of the best programmers are women, Grace Hopper and Ada Lovelace, and you'll use more than one language throughout your career. The best programming language is the one you know. Some are better at some things than others. Nice. You only need to know basic math operation. Oh, we already went over this. Programming is hard. So that part is important. It's important not to get discouraged when you run into a problem. Even people who are seasoned, they eventually run into a problem. Not everything's going to fall exactly in place every time as you want it to. So it's important to keep an open mind, realize that you will run into struggles, And once you come into that struggle, the same process applies, right? You have to identify the problem, be able to read an error message. And after that, again, Dr. Google more than likely has the correct diagnosis for your problem. All right, why is it hard? There's a difference between knowing the syntax structure of a language versus knowing how to apply the logic to solve a problem. As a beginning programmer, you're going to get frustrated. You don't know where to begin to even start solving the problem. And you might think programming is not for you. Or because you just don't get it. Again, keep an open mindset. This will happen. You will run into an issue. I remember when I was learning how to code in JavaScript, I can't count how many times I just looked at my computer and I was like, what is wrong with you? What is going on? Why won't you compile correctly? This is not what you're supposed to do. And then I would walk away, take 20 minutes, maybe go for a walk around the block with my dog. And I would come back, look at my code again, and I would realize, oh, wow, I'm missing a curly bracket, or my if statement doesn't make any sense. And once I started actually realizing that sometimes it's just better to pull away from the problem for 5 to 10 minutes, and then coming back and taking a look at it with some fresh pair of eyes, that's when you really learn how to move forward, identify the problem, come up with the solution, and continue the process as you're coding. Oh, practice, practice, practice. So that's super important. My understanding is that JavaScript is tougher than Python to pick up. Is that correct? And I guess this is a very opinionated question. And in my opinion, I don't believe so. I believe JavaScript is, I guess, on the same level as Python. The only difference that I would say is that Python has a little better structure as far as its language. You can actually, it's some of its conditionals are actual English. You could ask if something isn't, you could ask if something is inside of something else, and it will actually be able to give you a true or false statement. Whereas if you use JavaScript, the syntax for it is a little weird. I think the main differences between the two is syntactual, but other than that, they're both runtime languages. I think it depends on the person. I've always messed this HTML. So that makes more sense to me. Right, definitely. All right. Who will succeed? All right, so makes no excuses, learning on their own, asks a lot of questions. That part's important. Please make sure you ask questions. I can't help you if you don't ask me. And I can't know that there's a part that you guys aren't understanding or I didn't teach well if you guys don't let me know. Persistence, resilient, humility, and humbleness, high emotional EQ, and takes advantage of resources, learns from other people's mistakes. So I would like to say the persistence, the can-do attitude, and takes advantage of resources are extremely important. Just know that you can do it, right? Someone else has been in your shoes where they're learning and they run into the same hurdle. They got over it. You will too. You just got to make sure that you stay persistent. Excuse me, I have a question. So question, after this class, can we send LinkedIn profiles in here for connections? Absolutely. All of you are inside the Intro to Coding, Intro to Coding Slack channel. Feel free to, if you guys want to share your LinkedIn profiles on there for networking purposes, you guys are more than welcome to. Or you guys can do it here if you'd like to do it on the chat. Takes advantage of resources. Please go ahead and reach out to any of the TAs that you guys have on that Slack channel. We're all available throughout the day. Some of us might be a little more readily available than others. But for me, for example, if you just tag me on it, on whatever post you make, you put the @ and then my name, Francisco Avila, I will more than likely answer you within 5 to 10 minutes unless I'm teaching a different course. All right, so people who will not succeed, excessive hand holding, copy and paste this code without taking time to understand why it works, always complaining, mad at the world, wants the program to be done their way, argumentative, everyone is out to get them, doesn't learn from mistakes. From what I've seen before with students, the copy and pasting code is what gets them the most. There's no point in looking something up in Google, seeing the answer and copying and pasting the answer and just moving forward, because you're not really understanding what's going on with the algorithm or what's going on with the actual code. If you can't understand what the problem is, or how the solution works for that problem. When you come across that problem later on, and let's say the internet for whatever reason isn't available to you, you're not going to be able to come up with an efficient solution. And then also you're not going to be able to expand or further your understanding of different programs and platforms if you're not able to just understand the very basics as it is. So intro to coding live, and I apologize for this part. I will make sure to update it. It's going to be Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. There's going to be 9 total sections. There will be from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. 6 to 7 will be announcements, review night material and strategies to solve the problem, and 7 to 9 will be working independently or with a partner on solving coding challenges. Intro to coding live rules. Respect your fellow classmates and staff. No inappropriate jokes. No fake surprises. By that is what we mean is, I can't believe you didn't know that, or wow, you've never heard of that before. Stuff like that, or little subtle innuendos that are meant to put someone else down in some sort of way. Try to avoid those at all costs. We've never had well, I wouldn't say never, but to my knowledge, Code Platoon hasn't had any problems with individuals violating these rules. And just make sure that you're respecting one another when you're going through the program and being helpful to one another. All right, so what you'll learn, we're going to go over Python. It's a very popular language for backend development and in data analytics. One of the most commonly used languages, Python fundamentals, basic functions, conditionals, iterations, dictionaries, and more, and basic programming techniques. Before we get started, does anyone have any questions over anything I just went over?
Real quick, is this intro gonna be just Python or both Python and Java? Thank you.
This intro will be specifically on Python, but Code Platoon does offer a JavaScript iteration, which I could give you guys the information after this if you'd like. Does that answer your question, Mickey?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay. This intro is needed for the DevOps and full stack options, correct? Yes, that is correct. No problem at all. All right. So we're gonna get started. We're gonna go straight into,
I'm
we
sorry,
have
I have a really quick question.
yeah, of course.
The stuff that we're doing in I know that I think there was 2 intro classes I saw. The stuff that we're doing here, I know that there is a pre-assessment that you have to do for, I think, the 14-week course or
Yes.
a different course. Can we use the stuff that we're doing in these intro classes for that? Or do we have to come up with something different?
What do you mean by that?
Well, I don't remember exactly what it was. I think there was something on there about building a web page like from scratch with HTML and CSS. If we do something like that in one of these intro classes, can we use that project as the assessment for that?
Yes. So unless things have changed, to my knowledge, the assessment for actually being able to get in goes into a coder byte assessment of different algorithmic problems. Has that changed, Hannah?
I don't know. I know I looked at this one and I think there was another one I looked at. I may be confusing them because that was a couple months ago.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so with Code Platoon, you're gonna do a series of coder byte challenges, and the purpose of this course is to teach you the basics of Python. After completing this course, I'm confident that you guys will have all the skill sets necessary to be able to pass each individual one of those challenges. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's better. Thank you.
Of course, no problem at all. All right, so let's go into REPL. So the REPL intro, we have a console, we have a shell, and then we have an interface section. Here we have a little screenshot of what actually goes into REPL. And we have the run type button is onto our console, and the shell tab is a bash shell, which also can compile your code so that you can run it into the shell. And a better way of showing this would be if I just showed you guys the actual REPL itself. All right, so the actual REPL itself, if you have main.py, you can actually go in here and print different things, right? So let's go with the classical hello world. And if I run it, the shell will run, the console will run it, and we could see it here. For this course and for the remainder of this course, we're actually going to be using the shell to be able to run this. And we'll be naming these files something different. So let's go with renaming the file and let's name it lesson1. All right, so now if I click run, we're going to see that we get an error. The REPL died, exited with status 2. And it tells us here that there's no such file as main.py. So if there's no main.py, the run button's not going to work. But in the shell, what I can do is I can call Python 3. I'm telling the shell which type of version to use to be able to compile my code. And then I'm going to tell it to run lesson1.py. And now we see hello world being printed out into the console. So this is where all of our work is going to be happening. These are our file names. We could create folders and put files into our folders, but we'll mainly be using the shell. So I'll just go into creating a folder and how we could move things around, some basic commands. And I actually have a question on the chat. Should we be doing this with you or just more or so watching you every day? That's totally up to you. If you want to do it with me, you can. Otherwise, you could definitely just watch me. If you do it with me and a bug comes up, you could put it on the chat. And if I have the time available, I could maybe address it. That way everybody can get that question answered for them. Otherwise, the YouTube videos will be available to you while you're working in the challenges that we'll be handing out. Does that answer your question? Okay, perfect. All right, so some basic commands. We have mkdir. Mkdir stands for make directory. And a directory is just a folder. So let's say I just call this lessons. We see how this folder came up here with lessons. And let's say I make one for challenges. Is there a reason we are using Repl and not something like Visual Studios? Yes, the reason why we're using Repl and not something like Visual Studios is because Repl is very user-friendly and not everybody's at the same skill level as everyone else. This way we could actually get down into learning Python rather than trying to explain all the different technicalities that come with VS Code. Does that answer your question, Hannah? Okay, are we going to fork it all? You will be forking from Repl, yes. Or you mean from GitHub? We won't be using GitHub while we're working on here. Okay, perfect. Can you explain about the console and shell again? What is it that you would like me to explain a little better? Okay. So when it comes to this right here, this is going to be where we have any type of interaction with our program. This is the console. The console is just meant to run Python and Python only. And that's why when you click that run button, it's supposed to come up with the solution for the file. But if there's no main.py, it's not going to compile your code. So instead, we'll be using the shell. And in the shell, if you type in Python 3, followed by the file you would like to compile, it'll compile your code and then give you the output of what you want to see in the console. Does that answer your question? Okay, perfect.
That's just sorry, bro. Wanted to jump in. Can you, sorry to delay, can you tell me how you got here? I'm trying to follow you real time.
How I got here. Yes, of course. Let's see. Okay, so let's just go into Replit. So once I go into Replit, I'll be in here. We all should have made an account before this starting. Then I'll say create a Repl. It'll ask me to choose a template. I'm going to choose the Python template. And then I'll name this intro to coding life lessons. And then when I create the Repl, it's then going to send me here. Got it. It'll be working, and they'll create my environment. And then just to break down again, I can put print here, and print is just a built-in Python function that will show something into my console or my shell. And here I'll say hello world. If I click run, I should see it on my console. But because we won't be using the console, we'll be using the shell. I'm going to rename this to be lesson 1. Once it's lesson 1, if I click run, it's going to give me an error because main py is missing. So instead, I'll go to the shell and I'll give it the language that I wanted to use, which will be Python 3. And then I'll tell it the file that I want to run. And after that, we see hello world. Does that answer your question, Tyron?
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. Perfect. All right. So some basic commands. We can create McDear, and McDear will actually create a file. I mean, a directory. And here, let's just do lessons. We see that now we have a folder named lessons, but it's empty. So I'm just going to click and drag lessons in there. And let's create one called challenges. So now I have 2 folders, one with challenges that's empty and one with lessons that has one file inside of it. Now, if I run Python 3 and I try to run lesson 1 py, it's going to give me an error because in the current place that I'm at, there's no such thing as lesson 1 py. If I click ls in there, it's going to show me the files that I have available. I see that I have challenges and lessons. I have the poetry log and some other Ripple files that are in there along with the virtual environment. So instead, I'm going to run the cd command, which stands for change directory. And that's going to go into lessons. And if I run ls again, I'll be able to see lesson 1 py. Does anyone have any questions about that thus far?
Yes, please.
Awesome. What's your question?
So yeah, what is the what is the main purpose of us creating the directories? Is it just to save the .py works that we have, or what is the whole idea behind that?
So the purpose of creating different directories, meaning folders, and creating files inside of it is one, to get you guys some experience with the shell. These are Ubuntu commands, which you'll be using once you actually start going into development processes. And then it will also teach you how to compile your code in different directories. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Of course. Okay, awesome. The next command that we'll be going over will be clear. And if I run clear, we'll see that everything that I just did will be gone. So let's make a note of it, and then I'll share this with you guys so that we could write it down. So we got dir, and that stands for make directory. We got cd, which is change directory. We got Python 3, name a file, which will compile code. And ls, which will show all items in directory. You could also use the buttons just fine as well to be able to create things, but try to get used to just using the shell for this, for doing stuff like this. Okay, does anyone have any questions about Replit?
Just a quick question. So I'm in Replit, but I don't have these folders
Which folders?
that you've created on the left-hand side here in the challenges and in the lessons. Was the intro to coding live lessons, was that sent, or is that something that you created? Because when I'm typing that into the shell, nothing comes up. I just get the error message that you demonstrated earlier.
Yes, so you have to create them with using the command make directory. And then after that, you could put the lesson 1 file inside of the lessons folder.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing like a template that was already created.
No,
Alright, thank you.
awesome. Will you be sharing the link to the Replit you're working on? I will. Yes, this will be available to you guys. Oh, next question.
Real quick, once if you want to create a .py, you just click on the plus. Is that correct?
Yes, you could either click on the plus or you could use the command touch. So let's say I do touch lesson _2.py. You'll see that in lessons now, I got lesson 1 and I have lesson 2. So let me put that on there as well.
Thank you.
No problem at all. Okay, awesome. All right, so now we got formatting and clean code. So proper formatting of code, if you remember anything, is just be consistent. That part's very, okay, perfect. That part's very important. Just make sure that your code stays consistent, even if it's not to the liking that somebody is expecting from you, or let's say someone's not used to the same syntax that you're trying, or the same variable format that you're using. As long as you stay consistent, it will make sense to someone else who looks at your code. Just make sure that whatever you name your variable is describing what's actually inside of it. So proper variable naming is a descriptive name. Now, the name of the variable should make it clear what the data represents, and it uses snake casing when naming variables. And we want to make sure that we have proper indentation and spacing. What is a programming language? A programming language lets us write lines of code to give the computer a set of instructions to perform to produce some kind of output. Output is text on the screen and creation of a file. The computer will only perform exactly the instructions that you have given it. So going back to Replit, this is our file, print, this is my input, right? I'm telling it to print hello. And the computer, when I run that file, only shows me hello world. Put the shortcuts here. Do you mean this?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, they are on the chat now. Awesome. We're going to start diving into the actual meat and greedy of programming, and we're going to be going over values. I have been going for 40 minutes now, and I want to make sure everybody's good to go. Would we like a break, or are we okay to push? All right. Ooh, we got mixed answers. So let's mix it. Let's do a Okay, it looks like the majority of the class is ready to keep pushing. So let's push. Let's go straight into values. All right, so every value is a piece of data or data type, and that data type determines how that value behaves. So some values, we have integers, we have strings, and we have some functions. So let's actually go into, actually before we go into there, yes. So let's go into that. We can use the type function, and the type function will actually tell me what type of data I'm using. So let's actually run this. So let's put type in there. So I have the type built-in function, and then any function that you use is always going to have parentheses, and whatever argument you're passing into it is going to be inside of those parentheses. So currently I'm telling the print, well, let's start from the inside. So from the inside, I have a set of string inside of the type function. So the type function will return to me what type of data is inside of it. And once it returns it to me, I want to make sure that I'm able to see it. So I'm going to print it. So when I run this, ooh, I think I need to save this file. Yes, so make sure we save the files before we continue running stuff. So currently this file is being saved. Looks like it's trying to format, but I shouldn't need that. Interesting. Oh, hello. Let's open that up. Bring it in here. Okay, so this file is failing to save, so let's try to do it again. If I run into the same problem, I'll just refresh the page. Okay, there you go. So now we see that I have class of string. So it's telling me that this input in here is a string type, and that's how I know the data type is in there. So let's run a couple of different commands.
Quick question.
Send it.
So when I do the same thing, my shell script jumps to console. Any reason why?
Your shell script jumps to console. So when you run this,
Yeah, when I click run, then it just jumps from shell to console.
Yes. So you don't click run. You're supposed to just type this command, and after you type this command, press enter. That way it runs this code strictly in the shell. Because if you click run, it'll jump straight to the console, and then I'll get this error.
Gotcha. Thanks.
No problem at all. Okay, so now I put a number 8 in there. If I put a number 8 in there and I run the same thing, it's going to give me an integer, right? I can do, let's say, false. And let's say I do none. So now when I run these, we see that I have the string type, I have an integer type, a Boolean. A Boolean is either true or false. And I have a none type, just like I told it, none. And none just means that there's no value inside of it. Let's see what else we got. Could maybe get a Boolean field in here. I mean, not a Boolean, a float field. So if I put 7.5 in there, and I run this command, it's no longer an integer. Now it's considered a float. Does anyone have any questions over the different types? Okay, awesome. Let's push forward. So now we're going to go into variables. Variables are named labels, identifiers for storing values. Remember, from match class variables, X and Y, math class, sorry. So current year is the naming of the variable, and it's descriptive to what's holding inside of it. The name of the year, the name of the variable, you must give variables a name, and a variable name cannot begin with a number. And this is our value. So the equal sign is what tells it that it's going to be holding something inside of it. And once I pass the value in there, it's just going to create a small memory space saying that this, every time I run current year, it's going to tell me that it's 2021. So for example, let's say I do, I don't know, instructor's name, and I put in there Francisco. And now when I print instructor's name, I'm going to expect to see Francisco Avila on my console, right? Although I used instructor's name, all a variable is just a box, and I'm putting inside that box my name, Francisco Avila. So when I go to print it, I'm opening that box, grabbing the value out of it, and that's what I'm getting demonstrated on the screen. All right, so let's say I make A is equal to B and B is equal to A. So when I run this print A statement, what do you guys think I'm going to see?
You'll see B.
Right, I'll see B. See, and if I run print B, I'll see A, and vice versa. Because that's what I'm assigning to it. The variable itself does not mean that that's what's inside of it. But this is bad because I'm not actually describing what the value is holding. Whereas here, I'm describing what it actually is holding, which is my name. All right. Then we see the print function, which takes in variables to actually be able to print stuff. So the print function can actually take in multiple arguments. So for example, let's say that I want to put here is teaching. I just need to separate it by a comma. And once I run this file, I'm going to see Francisco Avila and then is teaching. The comma isn't there. All it's doing is it's printing the string and then printing the second argument. Okay, great. Let's see. Data types. I think we already went to data types. We got integer, got first name Tom, we got booleans, got undefined, and we got none. Right, and we saw all of these in here. Before I move any further forward, does anyone have any questions over everything that we've covered thus far?
So I see that we put a comma there to provide that space, but couldn't we just have put a space within that quotation mark as well? Or is it just normal practice to use a comma?
So the comma isn't to put a space in between the two arguments. The comma is to separate the arguments that are being passed in there. So if I take that off, I'm going to see this red squiggly line, and it's going to tell me that there's invalid syntax, right?
Okay, yeah. Okay, got it.
So now if I put the comma, it's all good. And when I run it, that space is coming naturally because it's just separating the two statements that I'm running into it.
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
No problem at all. All right, so I got a question in the chat. It says if we need to or want to practice more after this class, you may have a website or something we can use to practice, maybe some challenges. Yes, I will be sending out some challenges for you guys to practice. But would you guys prefer the challenges today, or would you guys prefer the challenges after I go over functions? I would like to hold them until after functions because you will need to know how to construct functions in order to pass those challenges. Okay, perfect. And then do we have access to these slides? Look over on our own. I will send these slides out on an email. That way we all have it to look over on our own. Using Google does work. Okay, perfect. Let's move forward from here.
Real quick, sorry, I'm still I had a little issue with my shell script. Before you can run the code, you have to type in Python train, then the name of the file file that
Correct.
you're using. Okay,
Yes.
copy. Thank you.
No problem at all. Awesome. All right. So we got data types. We went over none. Say again. Okay. So now let's go over a list. So a list is like dictionaries, stores values. I don't like the word of dictionaries, but let's work through what a list does. Right, so in a list, I can put different things inside of it, different data types. Let's say I have list of instructors. Right, and in this list of instructors, I have Francisco. We have, I'm sure most of you have already met Guillermo, and if you haven't, you will soon. We got Guillermo, we have Adam, and we have Benjamin. right? So now I can say print list of instructors. And I'm just going to comment out this code to ensure it's not running it and we don't get too much noise on our terminal, on our shell, excuse me. And when I run this, I see each individual list, right? And the way list works is they have a placement or an index for everything inside of it. What I mean by that, as a programmer, we're always going to count from 0, and then we'll aggregate after that. So we have 0, 1, 2, and 3. So now if I print instructors and I call an index inside of this list, right? And the way I call an index is I use the square brackets. And inside of these square brackets, let's say I put 0 in there. When I run my file now, all I'm going to see is Francisco, because I'm trying to say, hey, I want you to go inside the list of instructors, and I want you to give me back whatever is at 0 index. And now I get Francisco. So if I wanted Benjamin to get printed out, what do you guys think should be inside of these square brackets?
Zero.
It would be 3. So when we run this, now we see Benjamin, and it's because it is at the index of 3.
Wait, did you ask for Francisco or Benjamin? Did you ask for Benjamin? I don't know why I said Francisco.
Yeah, I asked for
Okay,
Benjamin.
my
Yeah.
bad.
No problem at all. Awesome. And now we see Benjamin being printed out. So now let's say I wanted both Guillermo and Adam to get printed out. How could I do that in this print statement? And you could either put it on the chat or you could just say it out loud. Either works.
One, two, if you want Guillermo and Adam.
Okay, so I want 1, right?
Uh-huh.
And I also want the index of 2. But now I'm passing multiple arguments into this print statement. So how do I call another argument?
Comma.
Yeah, so I would put the comma, and then I call my variable again, so list of instructors, and then I believe you said 2, right?
Yes.
Perfect. So now in my print statement, I'm going into list of instructors, printing the index of 0, putting a comma, going into my list of instructors again, and printing index of 2. So now when I run this, oh, I put 1 in there, excuse me. So we got 0, or did I say Guillermo and Adam? I did say Guillermo and Adam. That's my apologies. So just like I said, just like we said, we got Guillermo and Adam both being sped back into us. Awesome. Does anyone have any questions over how lists work and how individual data is being stored inside of it?
Real quick,
Yes.
can you alter the list? Can you add or delete from it?
Can I add or delete from the list?
Yeah, can you add a new name to it or delete from the list?
Yes, I can. I'm going to be going into list methods shortly, but for now, I'm just going to cover this portion. And then as we move on later on into the class, I'll be going more in depth into the abilities that you can do with list. All right, let's move on from here. Oh, well, perfect. We got some list methods that we could go over. So we got len, remove, append, insert, delete, and splicing. So let's work through that. Let's, just like we asked, we wanted to add one, right? And the way that I add something into a list is I'm going to call the list itself, and then I'm going to run the argument of append. And here it already tells me it's a built-in function that belongs to a list. And then it kind of specifies what I need to do. So I need to throw in there an object of whatever type, and it will be appended into the list. So now here, I can put whatever you guys think, whatever I would like, right? So I could put in there random instructor. And let's actually see the list of instructors before and after. I'm gonna clear so that it's a little, that we don't get too much noise. All right, so this is what we have before the append. All right, so we have the original list, which is Francisco, Guillermo, Adam, and Benjamin. And after running the command append, I'm putting in a new instructor, and now I'm seeing random instructor inside of the list when I call list of instructors in the second print. Does everybody understand that? Perfect. All right. So now if I wanted to see just the last statement, I could just say list of instructors, and I know that the original one was only 3. So if I added one in there, what would this number be?
4.
Nice. So we got 4 in there, and we run it, and now we see 4 being printed afterwards because now it exists in there. We also have the len method, which will tell us how many or how long our list is. And len stands for length. So let's just do len list of instructors. When I run this, I can see that there's 5 in there. And let me comment this one out. All right, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we got 5, right? But notice that 5 is not the index, right? 5 is just how many objects are inside of the list, how long it is. But the index is 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So let's say I was messing with the list and I didn't know how long it was. What I can then do is do a little bit of math to try to get the last one, right? So let's try to go over that. From what we just learned. So I want to get the very last instructor, and I don't know that the last instructor is number 4. All right, so I call list of instructors, and I know that I want to call an index of it. So now I'm going to ask the length of the list of instructors, and I'm going to subtract 1, right? Because if I call list of instructors and I call the length of it, I know the length of it is going to be as many objects are inside of it, right? And I subtract 1, it will now account for the fact that I'm supposed to start counting from 0. So if it was 1, 1 would be 0, and so on. But in this case, it's going to be 5. And since I added 1 in there, I'm going to receive index 4, right? Does anyone have any questions about that? Okay, great. There's a much easier way to do that as well. We can call the list of instructors, and instead of just calling the length and then subtracting 1, I can call -1. And if I do -1, it's going to give me the same thing. It's going to go backwards. So if I go -2, it will now give me Benjamin. Right? So if I say 0, it starts off here. If I say -1, it starts off here. And that's just a little bit of list manipulation. All right, so we went over append. Now let's go over remove. And we got, let's see. We got list of instructors, dot remove, and then it's going to want a specific value that I want to remove. So in this case, let's remove Benjamin, and just print out the list of instructors as well. So when I run it, we see the original array, or actually we see the array, the list after appending the random instructor. And then on the second portion, we see the list after removing Benjamin. So this works if we know the value that we're trying to remove. If we do not know the value that we're trying to remove, then we would have to use a different type of method. And let's try to use delete in this case. So we got delete, and in delete, we're going to call list of instructors. And from there, I want to now call an index. Let's just say the index of 1. And let's print this out twice. It only printed out 1, so it looks like my program is having problems saving again. So let's save. Okay, there you go. So we see it after appending random instructor at the end.
How did you save it?
I saved it by just holding down Command S if you're on a Mac. If you're on a Windows, I believe it's Control S.
Thank you.
No problem. So we see it after appending random instructor. After that, we remove Benjamin. So now we see it here without Benjamin. And then after that, I deleted the index of 1 in list of instructors. So index of 1 would be Guillermo. And now we see Francisco, Adam, and the random instructor that I added. So that's our delete function. We went over the index, but let's say I don't know what's in here, right? And I want to know the value of what's in there. So let's say I want to find out where Adam is located on the list. So I'm going to comment out all of that. And if I want to find out where Adam is located, I can say list of instructors, the index, and then I want to say, hey, where's Adam located in here? So when I run this, we see the list. I got Francisco at index 0, Guillermo at index 1, Adam at 2, and so on. And when I asked, I want you to grab the index of Adam and I wanted you to return it, it looks through the array, finds Adam, and then tells me exactly what the index of Adam is, which is 2.
Is there a difference between delete and remove? Like delete permanent or something, and remove is like a one-time?
Yes,
event?
so remove, both of them will only do the first instance of something. So let me see. List of numbers 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So now let's say that I want to do list of numbers and I want to remove 1. And let's actually put something in between this so that we could see the difference. So when I run this, excuse me, let me comment this out real quick. Okay, perfect. All right, I see the question from Noel. Is remove by name and delete by index, or can they both do the same thing? So delete is by index and remove is by value. So remove will look for the value in there, not the index. All right, so here I told it list of numbers, remove one. So we see the original argument. We have 1, 2, and a multiple ones. And then I told it to remove one. We see that we have multiple ones, but it's only going to find the very first one. And then after that, delete it. So now,
I have a quick question about that. Where it says remove one, you said it removes the first one. Is it referring to the number one or the value? Like, is it just the number one, or is it going to be whatever number comes first?
no, it's referring to the value of number one, right? So
Okay.
it's only going to find the first instance of one.
Okay.
So let's see, if I had 2 in here and then 3. And I run this. Oh, hello. Oh, it's taking some time. Okay. So now we have 2, 3, 1, right? But I told it to remove one. So in the second iteration, when we see him being printed out, we have 2, 3. The first instance of 1 is no longer there. And now we see 2, 1, 1, 1, and the rest of the list. Does that answer your question, Hannah?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, perfect. And let's move into the list of numbers. So if I did one here, this would only delete the index, right? So the index of 1 is 3. So what I expect to see now is 2, 1, 2, and so on. And that's what we get. So we get 2, the index of 1 gets deleted. So now we get 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, and the rest of the list. Does that answer your question? For Noel?
Yes, it does. Yes, thank you.
Oh, okay, perfect.
I have a follow-up question to that.
Yes, of course.
So what if you want to delete like all the ones in the list, or you want to delete all the twos in the list? Is that something more advanced, or is that something that you can use those methods to do?
I see. So if you want to delete all the instances inside of there, let's
like
see.
all the twos.
Let's see what we got here. So now we got list of numbers. We got pop, insert, index, delete item, delete attribute, say replace. And let's say that I want to replace all ones with nothing. Let's see what that does. I wonder if that will work correctly. Okay, so I get something wrong because replace is not a keyword. For deleting all of them that exist inside of the array, you would have to iterate through it and be able to remove them, right? So another thing that I have here, so let's say I want the count of 1. So list of numbers, and then let's say dot count, and it takes in a value. And I just want to figure out how many 3s are inside of there. Okay, so it tells me there's 2 of them, right? So now what I can do is I can say, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself and we haven't gone into while loops yet. So I'm going to save this question for later on while we're going through the course. And then can you just please remind me to cover removing all the instances from within the list? Thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
No problem. All right. So that goes over methods in the list. And actually we have splicing, which is just one more method that I want to make sure I cover. So splicing, we have list of numbers. And then I could actually pass in the individual indexes that I wanted to receive from here. All right, so let's go back to the list of instructors because that's going to be much easier to understand than a series of numbers. Okay, so we have list of instructors. And let's say that I just want Guillermo, Adam, and Benjamin, and I don't want Francisco to get printed out. All right, so instead, this splice is going to take two arguments. I'm going to tell it where to start. So I want to start at index of 1. And I could leave it empty if I wanted to go all the way forward. So now we see, and let me print out the original. Okay, so now we have the original, which is Francisco, Guillermo, Adam, and Benjamin. And I told it, I want you to start at index 1, which is Guillermo, and then give me the rest of the list. All right, so I put a colon, and I didn't give it a stopping argument. So because I didn't give it where to stop, it went all the way to the end. Now, let's say I just wanted Guillermo and Adam. I can tell it to start at 1, and I want you to stop at 3. And all I get is Guillermo and Adam. So now I just want to make sure that I cover this, right? So know that the first argument is inclusive, meaning that it's going to include whatever it is that I pass into it. I told it to start in 1, so it included Guillermo. The second argument is exclusive, meaning that it won't show it in the array. So I gave it the number 3, which is Benjamin, and because it's exclusive, it excluded it and stopped at Adam. If I wanted to just get from the start to the list all the way up to Adam, I can say colon 3. And it works exactly the same way as if I didn't give an ending argument. Now I don't have an ending, so it gives me from the very start all the way to the stopping argument. And that's splicing. Does anyone have any questions about splicing? No questions. All right, let's keep pushing forward then. So we've got dictionaries, a structure of data that can contain many values using commas separated by. Oh, we got a question. What's going on?
Sorry, I thought you were gonna touch on it. There is an insert on there. My guess is insert the same as append?
Could you say that again? Akeem?
Sorry, I was on mute. There is an insert on the list where you got the delete, all those methods. There's an insert on there. My question is insert the same as append? Insert?
Okay, there's an inside of the list.
Insert.
Oh, an
IN,
insert. Gotcha.
yeah,
Thank you so much. Yes, appreciate it. Yeah, let's go over insert real quick. So there's a difference between appending and inserting. So if I append something into the list, it's going to automatically go towards the end. Let's say that I want random instructor to go towards the middle or right after Francisco. What I can say is list of instructors, insert, and we see here that it takes 2 arguments. It takes the index, which I want to insert it into, and then the argument of what I want to insert. So now let's say I want it at index 1, where Guillermo is located, and then I want random instructor. I run Python, lesson PY. Okay, so now I got Francisco, Guillermo, Adam, and Benjamin, which was the original list. And I told it to insert at index 1, random instructor. So I got 0 as Francisco, 1 as random instructor, then Guillermo, Adam, and Benjamin. And that's the difference between insert and append. Thank you, Akeem, for catching that. I apologize,
Thank you.
everyone. No problem at all. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. So dictionaries. Dictionaries can store many different things, many different values, and they work in different ways. And I will go over dictionaries after we take a 5-minute break. So currently it's 7:15. Let's come back from our break at 7:20. Thank you, everyone.
I have a quick question for you before we get started.
Yeah, of course.
For some reason, my what's it called? The shell? Like for
Yes.
some reason, it's like I don't know what I did, but it kind of went away and I can't get it back. What's the setting? What do we have to type in order for it to pop back up?
Let's take a look. Because I'm not sure exactly what you're referencing to. So let's do you mind sharing
Yeah.
your screen?
Yeah, I don't mind.
Okay, perfect. So I'll stop share.
Let's see if I could get it back. Alrighty.
You should be able to share your screen now.
Let's see. Yeah, looks like I need to grant this access real quick. 1 second.
Oh, I think I might have given you permissions now. Unless you need access from Zoom.
Yeah, I think I need access from Zoom.
Okay.
Let me see. Should have just turned it back on. Let me try again. It says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Oh. There you go. What about now?
Try.
There it is.
Can you
Fifth
see
time's the
that?
charm. It says Lewis has started sharing his screen, but it's just a black screen, unfortunately.
Oh, really?
Oh, no, there we go. We're good now.
Okay. Sorry, I'm a little laggy.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I was wondering how I can get this file folder over here.
Okay, so on the further right-hand corner of the one in the bottom, because you see how there's one on top of the other?
Right here?
Yeah, so on the furthest right-hand corner, more right?
Like
There you
over
go.
here?
Yeah, click that real quick. And can you click close? Okay, and then you're just gonna click the lesson one and then kind of click and drag it towards the center. Like down towards the center of the screen. There you go.
Right here?
Yes. Nice. Now you got your lesson and you got your show.
Okay. And then in order for me to like use the shell to run something, so like for example, if I run this, how do I get it?
Okay, so let's go your shell and run ls so that you can see what's in the path. Ls, just ls.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so we see you have challenges, lessons, poetry, and the other Replit stuff. So I believe you're in lessons. So now let's go inside of lessons. Do you remember how to do that?
I do not know.
Okay, yeah, so it's going to be CD for change directory. And then space. And the name of the directory you want to go into.
So whoops. Uh-oh. My bad.
No, no problem at all.
And then would it be the .py one?
No, so this is when you run ls above,
Mhm.
it tells you what files are in there, right? So you can't access the lesson one py because it's not accessible to you right now,
Okay.
right?
So
But
would it be
when,
just lessons?
yeah. And now run ls again. And now you should see lesson one. So now to run it, you could run Python 3 space lesson one.
Ah, there
Perfect.
we are. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem at all. Does anyone else have any bugs that they would like to address? We could do it all together real quick.
Hello?
Yes?
Hi, I don't know how to use that either. It says can't open file, no such file or directory.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, let's share your screen so we could all see it and debug it, because I'm sure everyone's going to have the same question, so we could just see it all together. And then is it okay if I call you Seki, or what's the
Yes,
proper way of saying it? Okay,
Yes.
perfect. All right, so you're inside lesson one, but you don't
Uh-huh.
have a file. So you see on your left-hand side,
Uh-huh.
there's the lesson _1.
Uh-huh.
If
I
you
think that.
see how it's empty,
Uh-huh.
so you have to create a lesson one file in there. So
Okay.
just, yeah, so click it, and then you could either add a file through the buttons and just call it whatever you want to call it. Perfect. So lesson one.py. And now you could compile it by running Python 3 and then the name of the file. You want to put .py at the end of it?
Oh.
You can also use the up button to bring it up.
Yeah.
Okay, it's working now. Thank you.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah, of
Francis,
course. No problem.
Francisco, I think
Yes.
mine's running in console and not shell. Does it matter?
No, if you don't want to use if you want to stick to the console in itself, you can. But then you won't be able to put multiple directories and files in there and use them from the console.
Yeah, that wasn't my preference. I was just kind of fumbling around while you were teaching, and I got something to work, but I'm now realizing I'm on console and not shell. How do
Okay.
I work on the shell?
Perfect. Yeah, let's share your screen and let's walk through it.
All right. Share screen.
Awesome. So we got print, we got lesson one. Nice. And let's just currently you're on the console. So let's click on shell. Okay, perfect. And then here, let's just run the command clear. Could you make your browser full screen?
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, here you could just run the command clear, and it will get rid of everything that's on the shell currently.
Okay.
All right. So let's run ls so that we could see where we are. Nice. So we see that we have a main py file and we have a lessons. So you want to work from inside the lessons directory. So just change directory into lessons. And now you can run Python 3 and the name of the file you want to run. Perfect. And then just a quick trick. If you type in Python 3 and then space, and then put LE on there, and press the tab key, it will auto-populate the rest of the file for you.
Okay. Thank you.
Of course, no problem. Anybody else having any problems with Replit?
I have a question.
Of course.
So the mkdir, the make directory is creating a folder,
Yes, ma'am.
and touch is creating a file, right?
Correct. Yes. Okay. Awesome. Let's go back to our lesson. That's not it. There you go. Okay. So now in our lesson, we're going to start going over dictionaries, and dictionaries are just formatting of key values, and we'll just use this as our dictionary to start off. So we see that we have a employee, we have the equal sign, and then these curly brackets is what assigns that we're going to be using a dictionary. All right, so a dictionary, it's quite literally just like an actual dictionary. We look up a word in that dictionary, and then from that word, we get the meaning of it. And in this case, we're going to look up the exact key. So these are called keys on the left side of the colon. And then these are the values belonging to those keys. So let's make a dictionary. And then please don't worry, whenever I share this file with you guys, I'm not just gonna have it like this. I'll make sure to put comments as to what each individual function is doing so that it's a little more understanding. And let's make an employee as we mentioned before. All right, we're gonna open it up, create our dictionary. All right, and then our dictionary is, we just have an employee. So what goes into an employee? An employee has a name. So let's give it a name. What else do you guys think we want to put on this employee?
Salary,
Okay.
title,
Ooh, all right, so let's go to title.
Date.
Instructor. What did you say? Age?
Hire date. Start date.
Oh, start date. Got it. So we got start date. And let's just say start date or start. Yeah, let's make it starting year. And let's make that 2023. And then salary. Let's make it, I don't know, 1250. All right, and then what else? Let's say we want to describe a uniform, right? And a uniform takes in more than just one thing. So a uniform has to have, and I'm going to give it another dictionary in here because now I'm describing a uniform object, right? Or what would go into a uniform. So let's say a uniform has a shirt, and let's say it's black, black collar. Okay, let's say it has some pants, and these pants are slacks. And then let's make it hat, and that's if he will be wearing a hat or not, and let's make that true. Okay, so we see here that we have a bunch of commas in there, and that's what's separating each individual one of our key values. And last thing, let's say we have coworkers, and I want to make sure that I put a comma here. And for coworkers, I'm just going to put list of instructors. Awesome. So now we have our employee, and this is all fine and dandy, but we need to learn how to actually manipulate the data in there. All right. And I'm going to give it a different name here. Let's just use this. All right. So employee, his name is Raul Avila. His title is instructor. He started in 2023. He's making $12.50. Does he have a uniform? His uniform is a black collar shirt with some slacks pants. Let's call him khaki, with some khaki slacks. And it's true that he wears a hat. And then the co-workers of Raul Avila is the list of instructors, which we defined up here. Let's get rid of the random instructor for now. Okay. So to be able to actually manipulate the data and be able to see what's inside of the employee, let's say I want to see the employee name, right? So I can say employee and name. So I'm saying I want you to pick up the employee dictionary and I want you to look up the word name and I want you to give me the value. Okay, so I got a question in the chat and it says, so why is hat a Boolean versus a value? Or was that just something you were doing for this example? This is something I'm doing for this example to show that there's different data structures that you can store. So currently we have string, we have integer, we have a float field, more string, and then we have a Boolean and a list. Does that answer your question? Got it. Okay, perfect. All right, so when I run in, oh, another question, send it.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask really quick, does that comma absolutely have to be there?
This
All
comma
of
right
those
here?
commas? Yeah.
Yes, they do. If they aren't there, it won't recognize the next set.
Oh,
So
okay.
invalid syntax.
So would it only just like read that top line, or it's just gonna give you an error altogether?
It would give you an error altogether. Okay, perfect. It's like separating it as different orders. Yes. All right. So now if I look up, what I'm saying here is I want you to go into the employee object. I want you to look up the key name and spit out the value. So it looks like my shell kind of reset. So if I run ls, I see that I'm not in the current directory. So I'm going to change directory into lessons. And now we see the intro to coding live, which was the parent directory that I'm on. And I changed into lessons. So now I can run ls to confirm that my file is there. I see lesson1.py. I can clear, and I can now run Python 3 employee, or excuse me, lesson 1.
Francisco, real quick, I know we're not hitting run in shell. So what exactly are you hitting for it to print over there? I've been just trying to watch, but I'm not sure what you're hitting.
Yes, I'm actually just pressing enter. So after I type in Python 3 lesson 1 py, I press enter, and then knows that that's supposed to compile the code inside of lesson 1 file. Does that
Okay,
answer your
I'll try
question?
that again. Yeah, I'll try it again. It didn't work the first time, but let me try again and see if it was just user error.
Of course.
Thank you.
And just real quick, so you'd have to essentially do the Python 3 lesson _1 every time and hit enter.
Correct.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
No problem. All right. And now we see that the value that we got was Raul Avila. So just like we expected, went into employee, grab name, and the value is the instructor. All right. So now let's say I wanted to find out what type of shirt he was wearing. So what's the first key that I want to enter? All right, so we got name. I know that it's not name that I want to go into.
Uniform?
Yeah, perfect. So I'm gonna put in uniform. All right, and if I run that, we see that uniform is just another dictionary, but now I want just a black collar. So how do I get that? Any ideas?
Are you printing those on two separate lines?
Yes, so this /n, I was gonna cover it afterwards, but I
Oh, I
should
see.
cover it now.
Yeah, no,
This /n stands for new line. So if I clear it and I run it, I see the uniform word that I gave it here. Then it goes into a new line, and then in the new line, it prints out the employee uniform. Right, but all I want is to be able to see the type of shirt. So how could I get that?
Maybe a dot, then the name.
All right, so we go employee. So now I'm inside employee. I want to see black collar. So now I'm gonna go inside of uniform. All right.
It's index 1.
So this, since it's a dictionary, it doesn't work in indexes. It works in key pair values. So instead of
Okay.
calling index 1, I would call the key itself, which is shirt. All right. Or actually, let's see if it will work if I call index 1. I wonder what that behavior would do. Yeah, so it's going to give me an error, and it's going to tell me that it's not iterable, and that's the reason why I got the error. All right. So instead, I'm going to call shirt. And when I run that, so now I see the uniform. I got the entire uniform dictionary, but I want shirt from within that uniform. So I call the shirt key. It goes into shirt and gives me back black collar. Perfect. Does anyone have any questions about how to iterate through data in dictionaries? I think Tyrone, you were about to say something.
Yeah, the /n. What's the significance for that?
So the /n is what starts a new line. All right, so we see shirt, and then the /n tells it that the next argument or anything after that /n,
Okay.
hello, will be on a new line. So
Thank you.
let's see, clear. All right, so we see shirt, goes /n, prints hello. Notice there was a space after the after the n. So now I have an empty space here.
Is there
Yeah.
necessarily a purpose for that or just for cleanliness and readability?
I was just doing that for cleanliness and readability. Okay, perfect. But if that's confusing, I can probably just do this. Hello. Awesome. So I'm
You
getting an
spelled
error here, and
uniform.
oh, yes, I did spell uniform wrong, but that's not what's causing the syntax error. So if we see here, I have my beginning. So this is why it's important to read the error before you just keep running it over and over again, right? So I see lesson 1 PY tells me there's an error, tells me to look at line 50, and it's inside the print statement, and it has a little caret of where it thinks the error is, and it tells me syntax error, unternative string literal detected. So now I go here, I go to line 50, I see I start my string, but then I notice that this comma isn't white, and that's because I never ended my string. All right, so if I go there and I end my string, we see now the colors changed. We got employee, we got the shirt and everything the correct color. And now when I run it, it fixes my error. Awesome. Okay, so list of instructors. We know that that's here. So let's bring that down real quick. So now I'm gonna have you guys walk me through this, and I want to print a list of Guillermo, Adam, and Benjamin, right? So it's going to be a slicing of the list of instructors coming from the employee. So if I take it one step at a time, how do I just get the coworkers that belong to employee? Okay, so let's run employee first. Let's see what that gives us.
Give us everything.
Right, so that gives me everything. Okay. So I know earlier when I just put name inside square brackets, I got only raw Avila. So now what if I just want the list of instructors? What key could I use to pull the list of instructors?
Coworkers.
Coworker.
Nice. So I can pass in coworkers. Okay. So now I see Francisco, Guillermo, Adam, and Benjamin. Nice. And then Hannah passed it on the chat what we would want to put inside of our slicing. So I got that, and now I want to slice that value list or that list by saying 1, and then we could put 3, but we want Benjamin to be included. So let's see what this gives us. So this only gives me Guillermo and Adam because the stopping argument is exclusive, not inclusive. All right. So instead of a 3, what should I put there? Right. So we could try 4, but in this case, I just want to leave it empty. All right. And if I run that, it's just going to be Guillermo, Adam, and Benjamin. I actually wonder what happens if I put 4, because technically 4 doesn't exist. Oh, yes, so 4 also works. What do you use for a range? What do you mean by a range, Hannah?
Well, so I don't know, is that semicolon or colon? I can't remember what that's called. The
There's a
colon. Okay.
Mhm.
So the colon means and. I thought it was a range of 1 to 3. So what would you use for a range of like 0 to 3 or 1 to 3? So it would include all of those.
So it is a range. The colon is a range, but it's instead of telling it to give me 1 through 4, I'm saying, hey, give me everything from 1 until right before 4.
Is there another symbol that you can use as a range where it includes that? Where it wouldn't be 1 to 3, it would be 1 to 4?
No. So you would just have to use the list indices this way and have it, if you just wanted everything afterwards, you could leave it empty. Otherwise you just have to remember that it's exclusive, not inclusive, and that it will cut it out of your slice.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Awesome. So now we were able to actually be able to get an instructor slice from the employee. So now let's say that I wanted to get if he's wearing a hat or not. How could I do that? Let's start off with employee. What's the next keyword?
Would it be uniform?
Nice. So we're going uniform. Okay, so now let's just print that for now so that I can see what I have so far. Okay, so it looks like all I have is this, but I want to check if he's wearing a hat, if that's true or false. So what's the next key that I would use?
Hat.
Nice. Perfect. Now I see true. Awesome. So this takes care of my dictionary. At this point, does anyone have any questions? Does everyone feel comfortable with the material we covered today?
I have a question about the hat one.
Of course.
So you said, let's see if he's wearing a hat, but then you
Right.
put hat. But if it's a Boolean operator, there should be 2 options there to determine if he actually is wearing a hat or not. Or am I looking into it too far?
I think you're looking into it too far. So this is, if it's true, it will be he's wearing a hat. If it's false, he's not wearing a hat. Does that make sense? I could
Yes,
assign
okay.
it, right? So I could say employee uniform hat. Let's say I don't want him to wear a hat anymore. I can say is equal to false. And since now I'm assigning, I can't print it.
Hmm.
And actually, let me print it twice. So it's going to print the original value. Then I'm going to assign it to a different value. And then I'm going to print it. Right. So, boom. So I run it. We see the original value is true, which is what we had in there. All right. And then we changed it to false. And now when we printed it, we see false. Right. Now let's say that we didn't know that he took off a hat or he wore it, but we know that the state changed. What I can do is I can use the exclamation point, which just stands for not. Or I could actually just put not. All right. So this is true when I tell
Okay,
it.
and then you would put equals false after that outside of the bracket because you're changing the actual variable.
Right here, is this what you're talking about?
Yeah, where you had
Yes.
false before it was not.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so here, let me, let's put start here. And then let's put after down here. So see, the start was true, right? This is where we see
Okay,
that.
see that I'm used to seeing. That makes more sense.
Okay, perfect.
So it's the same thing as the hat, but you just didn't label it on the shell.
Right. So now instead of giving it an explicit value, I'm just telling it, hey, this state changed. So now it's not whatever the original value was.
Okay. All right,
Awesome.
thank you. That makes more sense.
Yeah, of course, no problem at all.
Also, instead of equals to not, can you use the shift 1, then equals to? Shift and 1. Don't know what that is called.
It's gonna be, that's asking a question. So I'm saying it's not equal to. So let's try that. All right, so I could say it's equal to not, but
No,
that's
no,
not going to.
yeah, that's gonna be before the equals to, yeah.
Mhm. Okay, so let's run that. We see how it's still true. That's because now it's all I'm doing is asking it a question. So now what I can do is I can say, I can print it, right? And I know this is true. And this hasn't changed at all. So it's true as well. So when I print it, I'm gonna say it's false because I'm asking it, hey, is employee uniform hat not equal to employee uniform hat? So it's gonna give me false. Now, if I change this into a double equals, it'll give me true. Right? But if I'm changing the value, I always want to use the equal sign and then the not word. But now it's getting angry because I'm telling it to print, and variable reassignment cannot happen within a print statement. And now it works the correct, now it gives us the correct behavior. Does that answer your question, Akeem? I think that was a
Can you touch again? Variable reassignment cannot happen in a print. Okay, gotta remember that.
Yes. Yeah, so I can't call print inside here. All right, because I'm trying to reassign a variable, and the print method is saying, hey, you can't do that while being inside. So instead, I have to make it happen in the line prior. And then I could call the print statement, calling that same key, those same keys from within employee to be able to get the ending value. Okay. That in itself was a lot and it was pretty confusing. Does everyone have a pretty good grasp on that? Or could I maybe define it a little better? Okay, great. Everyone's doing good. We are making some good progress, everyone. So let's switch over and let's go into operators. So, and actually before we go into operators, that was a pretty heavy topic. Let's take a 5-minute break and come back at 8 o'clock. Thank you, everyone. All right, everyone, we're about to go into operators. Before we go into operators, I guess I'll ask, does anyone know anything about, well, operators is a hard way to explain it. So we'll go into math operators and what they actually do. So we have the description, which is assign the operator itself, and then we have the example. We have A equals 5. What I'm saying is that A will now be 5 throughout the existence of my program. It's easily confused with the comparison operator of double equals, which I will go into here soon. So now we have the description, the operator, and example, and this is all plain math. The only one that's a little confusing is the exponent one, which is 2 stars. We're saying we want 3 to the power of 2. If you run 2 stars on it, the slash is division, and then the percentage sign is a remainder. So the way this works is I'm going to say 10 divided by 3. So 3 goes into 10 3 times, but there's 1 left over, and it gives me the remainder, and it's going to be 1. And this is called modulus. That's what everybody will call it, but it's just going to give you back the remainder of the value after it's being divided. All right. So now we have some logic operators, and some logic operators are going to be equal, double equals. We have the not equals, right? We have the greater than, less than, greater than or equal, and less than or equal. So if A is 4 and B is 2, if I ask it, hey, are these two the same? It's going to tell me that it's false. If I say, is it not the same? It's going to tell me that it's true. And this actually has an extra equal sign, so I apologize. I'll make sure that gets fixed. If I say A is bigger than B, it's going to tell me that it's true because A is 4, B is 2. So this is true. If I ask the opposite, it gives me false. If I say A is greater than or equal to B, it's going to come back with true. And if I say A is less than or equal to B, it's going to come back with false. We have the and or operator. And the and or is basically saying and means both conditions have to be met, and or means one of the 2 conditions need to be met. So if I say, is A greater than B? So A is 4, B is 2. So A is greater than B. And then I also want to check if B is less than C. So 2 less than 8. Okay, so both of those conditions are true. So I'm going to have them back to true. Now in this second one, I'm asking, we got a hot mic, Alvaro. Thank you. This one I got A is greater than C. So A is 4, C is 8. So that's false. And I'm going to say, and A is greater than B. So A greater than B is true, but A greater than C is false. And I'm asking and, so I'm going to return false, right? And the only difference between these two is that here I'm using the or keyword. And because I'm asking or, it means just one of the 2 conditions have to be true. So A greater than C, we know that's false, but A is greater than B, so that becomes true. Does anyone have any questions over the logic operators? Okay, and then we go into session 2. But before we go into that, let's actually put those skills we just learned into play. All right. So let's say, so let's go with, or actually, here you go. Let's find out if our employee is wearing the hat, right? So I'm just going to say if employee uniform hat, then print or wearing a hat. And this actually doesn't go into the what I want to cover. So let's go with low number, mid number, and high number. Okay, so now let's say that I want, let's go into math operators first. Let's print low number divided by 10 and see what that gives us. So we get 0.1, turns into a float, no problem there. So now let's say low number, and since low number is 1, let's change it to 2 actually, just so we can get some interaction. And I make it to the power of 2. That gives us 4. All right, because it's 2 times 2 is 4. Perfect. So now let's say I want high number, let's say I want the remainder of what high number would be when it's divided by our mid number. Right, so we got our high number, which is 15, being divided by our mid number. It only goes into it once, and the remainder is 5, so it spits out 5. So our math is pretty simple, very easy in understanding. So now let's print, let's go with this. So we got number 1, which is 15, number 2, 20, and number 3. And let's go into printing what each one of them are. So I want to check if number 1 is equal to 10. And then I also want to check if number 1 is greater than 10. And let's check if number 1 is greater than or equal to 10. All right, so what do we expect this one to be?
False.
So we expect that one to be false. Is number 1 greater than 10?
Yeah.
Okay. And then I'm asking it if it's greater than or equal to 10. So what's this one going to be?
False.
So this one, let's say that maybe it might be false. So let's see what we get here. So when I run it, I get false, just like we thought it would be, right? Because 15 is not equal to false. Then I get true, because number 15 is greater than 10. And then I get true, because I'm asking, is 15 greater than or equal to 10? So this right here actually comes out to be true. Okay, awesome. So now let's say, let's print if number 1 is not equal to 10. And then let's go into some more complex stuff. So let's print if number 1 is not equal to 10 and number 1 is greater than or equal to, let's say 13. So we know this one is more than likely going to be true. What do we think this one's going to be? Okay, so let's see. I'm saying it might be true. So let's clear it. Let's run it. All right, so both of them are true because 15 is not equal to 10. So we know that statement's true. And now I'm asking if 15 is greater than or equal to 13. which I also know that statement's true. Okay, so now what if I run or in here?
Quick question.
Send it.
Since you have and in the earlier, and that's supposed to match both statements, both the not equals to 10 and the second argument, because of the and statement, or it doesn't matter?
Yes, it does matter. So it checks both. So it asks us if number 1 is equal to 10. So we know this is true, right? And then it asks us if number 1 is greater than or equal to 13, which we also know is true. And because of that, it gives me true. Now, if
Gotcha.
I check if it's equal to, we know that 15 is not the same thing as false. And we know that this is true. So what do we think the output's going to be?
False.
False. Right, so this is just like asking positive plus a negative, right? So a positive plus a negative is equal to a negative, and then a positive plus a positive is a positive. That's all this is doing. All right, so we know this is false. This is true, but because I'm checking both conditions need to be met, it's giving me false. All right. Now, let's say that I wanted to only check one condition needs to be true.
It'll be an or statement.
Right. So this case, I would use the or statement. So now let's check or. So then now it would give me true. And if I clear it, and actually let me comment these 3 out, that way it doesn't get too much noise. Okay, now we see true because false isn't true, right? We see that 15 is not equal to 10, but 15 is greater than or equal to true. So that returns true because at least one condition of the 2 was met. Now let's say that I want it to be this to be less than or equal to. Both of them are now false. So now my argument will be false. Does everyone understand that? Okay. So now let's say that I want to see.
You have a question in the chat.
Oh, question in chat. Thank you so much. Let's see. If using or statements, how would you differentiate which is true or false? Could you explain that a little better, Alexis? I think you're typing. I'm assuming your mind just overthought it. Okay. Awesome. So let's go back to our employee dictionary and let's do a couple of checking here. So now let's say minimum wage is minimum wage. If minimum wage is $13.50, so now I want to find out if employee is being paid minimum wage. How do I check that? So now I need a print statement. Okay, so we know that we need salary, so employee. I go into the salary keyword. Okay. Perfect.
Wouldn't that be different? It wouldn't be a variable. I don't remember what the word for it is, but because it's got a decimal in it, wouldn't that be different? Like a floating number?
Right. So they're both floats. But what do you mean by different?
Oh, I didn't know if it would be considered like a variable. So it's treated the same
Say again.
where you have minimum wage equals 13.50.
Uh-huh.
So that's treated the same as like the salary at 12.50.
Correct. So they're both going
Okay.
to be type floats. And they could even be integer and float. As long as they're both numbers, you can conduct math operations on them.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay, and then we got the equal sign. So in this question, I'm asking, is employee being paid at minimum wage? All right. So since I'm asking if he's being paid at minimum wage, I can then use the double equal sign. And when I run that, I get false because he's not being paid at minimum wage. So now let's change that. So now is employee being paid, let's say, more than minimum wage, or let's say less. How do I check that? Okay, so it'll be less. So employee, and then I would still access salary. And I'm asking if it's less than minimum wage. All right, and if I run that, I see true. Perfect. So now let's say I want to check if the employee is being paid at minimum wage.
I have a quick question for you.
Yes.
So what, where it says is employee being paid at minimum wage, if it's higher than minimum wage, it's still not like my question is like, if he was even getting paid 1 cent more, and I don't know, whatever the case may be, like let's say he was getting paid more than the minimum wage, and you just use the equals, will it still register that as like a quote unquote true statement?
No, so at that point it would be false. So let's say you're saying if he was making 13.51, right?
Yeah.
Just 1 cent more. So if I run that, still false. Right? The second statement changed because now he's not being paid less than minimum wage. He's being paid more than minimum wage.
Okay.
So now let's say if I wanted to say employees being paid more or at minimum wage, I can say greater than or equals,
Okay.
right? And now we'll see the true statement coming out.
I
Does that
see.
answer your question?
It does. Yeah. I was just I was wondering like if it was more than the minimum wage, what it would kind of produce, since it's kind of being specific to at.
Right. So that since I'm being specific and what I'm specifically asking is it at minimum wage? I'm not asking if he's being paid more or at. I'm asking at minimum wage. So that's where we use the double equal sign. Now
Okay.
here, if I'm using more or at, that's why we use the greater than or equal. But if I was just using the more than minimum wage,
Just remove that equals.
yeah, I would remove the equals.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah, of course, no problem at all. So now let's I wanna know if my employee is being paid at the very minimum wage, and if he's wearing khaki slacks. How do I check that? So let's see. So I want to check, is employee being paid at least min wage and wearing khaki slacks for pants? Right, so I would need an and statement. Okay, so the first thing that I need to do, we already know how to access the employee salary. So let's go into the employee salary. And I'm saying he's being paid at least minimum wage. So what does that mean as far as my operant? If it's at least minimum wage, would I be checking if it's equal to, less
Greater
than? Yeah, greater than and what, or equal,
Greater
right?
than
Or
or
equals to.
Very equal to.
Yeah, so greater than or equals minimum wage. And I also want to find out if he's wearing khaki pants. So now I also need to see employee uniform. And then the last keyword would be what?
pants.
Pants. All right. And pants is equal to
Khaki.
khaki pants. Or khaki slacks, sorry. Okay, so now if both conditions are true, I should see true. And let me comment these out so that we don't get him confused. And now we see true. Right, because he is being paid at least minimum wage. He's getting paid 1 penny more exactly. And then he's also wearing khaki slacks for his pants.
I don't mean to sound rude by asking this, but at what point would you actually use that in real life, like for a job? Obviously, you're not going to be looking for khaki pants and minimum wage, but it seems like that is a lot of typing for just to find out true or false. And it doesn't seem like it'd be very, time efficient or beneficial. So how would you use that in a real life situation?
Okay, so how the way that I would use this in a real life situation, let's say I was creating some sort of API for an ecom website, right? And by ecom, I mean like an e-commerce, like let's say I'm shopping. And when I go into the shopping, I need to make sure that 2 conditions are met. I need to make sure that I have the product, 1, and I need to make sure that the payment that the client is paying is higher than the product price. Right? So I need to check both of those conditions. So when I receive the request, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my dictionary or my database, which will, once I interact with my database, the information gets spit back in an object form or a dictionary form, and it will look somewhat like this. But instead of employee, it would be the item title, and then I'll have the name of the item, the description, and then how much it cost, right? And then I'll go into the dictionary and I'll find out how much of that item is in stock. So then I'll ask if item is in stock, if it's greater than 0, and then my and statement would come into place. And then I would go into a client dictionary, right? Or the client payment info, where I could check if even the payment is valid, because I need to make sure the payment is valid. Maybe that's in there. Maybe there's a true saying that the payment was valid. And then how much the client paid. And if both of those are true, that he paid more than what it's cost and that I have enough in stock, then once I get that true, there's a certain amount of behaviors that I would then process, which would be subtracting 1 from the total amount of products that I have and actually subtracting that cost from the client and giving the client back a response of, hey, you ordered 1 of this item and this is your change. Does that answer your question?
Yes, and I'm assuming that that would be something that you could do on a loop and you could have it replay and do over and over again without having to type this.
Yeah, so you would put it into a function. So you would technically type this only once, right? The entire algorithmic the iterating through the entire dictionary would only happen once. But then once you have it that one time, excuse me, you could put it into a function, and a function is just a set of steps that you want to reuse over and over again for a specific
So-
behavior.
Would that
And-
make it like a script?
Yes, kind of like a script.
Okay. All right. I got caught up in watching all this and I forgot that it does do that automatically. I was like, that is a lot of typing.
Yes. Yes. So right now I'm showing everything manually so that tomorrow when we go into loops and or not tomorrow, excuse me, on Wednesday when we go into loops and functions, we can see how all of this behavior can be automated. Because just like Hannah said, this is a struggle, right? And we are typing quite a bit. I mean, we got almost 100 lines of code already from just some simple examples. So we were actually running a big program. We would run into some issues, and especially if we want to do the code over and over again. Does that answer your question, Hannah?
Yes, thank you.
Of course, no problem at all. Awesome. And let's see. So we got 6:26. Sorry, 8:26. So we got a couple of time to kill. And I think we went over all the material that we have today. So at this point, I'm going to break it down to just questions. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask me. Otherwise, thank you so much for your guys' participation. I really appreciated everyone being here. It was great interacting with you guys and meeting with you guys. If you guys stick around, I would love to hear a couple of fun facts from everyone, maybe get to know you a little better. But otherwise, this is going to conclude our lesson for the day.
Good question.
Then, oh, perfect. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I've been watching a couple of videos, like Anna said as well, but I noticed we talked about the square bracket, which is list, and the square bracket, which is dictionary. What about the parentheses, like open and close parentheses? That are we still gonna touch on that later, or is it the same? I know this kind of is that tuples?
Are you talking about, okay, so got you. So what you're talking about is tuples. Yes, I could go into that really quickly. So tuples are kind of like a list, but the difference between tuples and list is that tuples can't be altered. So let's say that I have a set of information that I know will never change, right? So instead of list of instructors, let's say I have, I don't know, something that will never change. Tuple. Ooh, tuple. Let me make sure that I'm spelling it correctly.
List of states.
TUPLE.
Yes, PLE. Perfect. Thank you. Oh, there you go. Days of the week. Perfect example. Days of the week. All right. And let's say I want that to be a tuple, and I have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we got Thursday, and we got Friday. I'm going. All right, we got Sunday. All right, so we got, let's say I want to print, and everything works exactly the same. If I want to print days of the week, and I call index 0, what do you guys think we're going to get?
Monday.
Exactly. So we get Monday, right? And I'm pretty sure I could even slice it. So let's say I do 0 and 3, and I run it. So we get Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, right? So it works exactly like a list. Everything that goes into that's in a list happens with the tuple. But the difference is that, let's say I try to reassign one of those spots, right? And let's say instead of days of the week being 0 being Monday, let's say I want to make it, I don't know, fun day. And then I print days of the week. Okay. Okay, so now we get an error, and it tells me that the error happens at line 40 in the module, days of the week, and it tells me tuple object has not support item assignments. So I can't reassign it. Whereas if I did list of instructors, index 0, equals hello. And then I print list of instructors. Oh, and actually, this is going to give me an error. So let me comment that out real quick. So now we see that I see that hello has replaced Francisco. Whereas if I try to do that to a tuple, I can't do it, right? I can't. Let me check if I can send something into the tuple in itself. So the tuple doesn't have append. And I can't add things into a tuple either. And I'll go into sets as well as we go on into the program. And then sets is kind of like a tuple, but you'll be able to add things into it. It's a different data structure that I will clarify once we get to that portion of the lesson. But this is how a tuple works. It's just a individual set of information that you can hold as a list, call by the index, but you cannot alter, add, or remove from. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
No problem at all. So maybe I missed it. Visual, the list and tuple look the same. What is the difference visually? Okay, perfect. Let's see. So we got Sunday. So visually, other than the square bracket. So let me see. Let's see.
Never mind. I see the brackets. Never mind. The brackets are
Oh.
what make it a tuple in a list, right?
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yep. That's what I missed. Thank you.
No problem at all.
If you don't, can you also create a tuple without the use of the parentheses? Just commas?
One more time.
Can you create tuples without the use of the parentheses? No bracket, nothing enclosed, just commas.
With no bracket, nothing enclosed, just columns, meaning just putting things in there with a comma.
Yeah, like Monday through Sunday. Will it and we got rid of the
Monday, Tuesday. Oh, let's see. Yeah, let's call that. Week, or I guess that would be the start of the week. Let's see what this does. Okay, so then we got Python 3 and we want to run lesson 1 py. Okay, yes. So this will also create a tuple. Instead of putting the parentheses, we can just separate it by commas and it will automatically create a tuple for us.
Thanks.
Awesome.
That helped me interpret this cheat sheet I just printed out. I was trying to figure out what it was telling me. I thought that's what it was saying. Cool.
That's how you do it. Awesome. All right. We don't think this is everything that we'll go into when it comes to these different data structures. Each individual one of the data will go more in depth. So let me show you guys here a little bit more of the lesson. So as we go here in section 2, we'll go over functions. We'll go over control flow, where the Boolean statements will come into play for deciding what behavior we'll have to go into. And then once we start going into built-in methods, that's when we'll go really in depth into each individual data structure and what you can do with each one of them. God, that you could send us in the email to practice all this with. Yeah, so what do you mean? Do you just mean like a random website that you want to code into?
Just random websites that we can do. I learn by repetition. So the more I do it, the better I'm going to learn it.
Yeah.
So just any random websites you have that we can practice coding. And
I've tried looking it up before, and the one problem I have is that it's like, oh, here's your screen to code. Well, I have that with Visual Studio. I can code,
Right.
but I need a challenge. Like, I need someone to tell me what I'm supposed to be doing before
Yeah.
I can get creative enough to come up with my own.
So if you go to Code Wars and you go in there, it goes into getting started, and then you could choose the language that you want to use. Let's do it real quick. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen real quick while I create this. This is taking a lot longer than I thought. I apologize. Okay. Okay, so here in Code Wars, I'm gonna tell it not to save this. All right, perfect. So I'll ask you a couple of things. This really doesn't matter. You could just put whatever you would like in here. Let's just say we want front end and back end development. We do games. It's gonna give you the languages that you would like to practice in. So in this case, let's just say that we only want to practice in Python, not in C. Do you want no? Not interested. All right, so I go here. Something happened. Oh, and then it's gonna ask me, let's say, learning to program, or let's just do with advanced beginner. And there you go. So now I'll start giving you different problems. You can do Python. Let's go to train. And when I go to train, it gives me a problem, what the goal of the kata is, and what it is that I'm supposed to give as an ending value. And that's what Code Wars is. There's Code Wars and there's LeetCode, and that's a good place to practice different algorithms. But for now, I would just practice in a coding space until we get to actual functions and conditionals and workflow, which will happen on Wednesday. And then I would dive a little bit more deeper into actual challenges and algorithms. Oh, did Tyrone just hear something on this cheat sheet? Oh, that's nice. Awesome. Does that answer your question, Hannah?
Yeah, I think that actually would help me a lot. So thank you.
Of course, no problem at all.
I have another quick question for you.
Yes.
I know for this class, like we kind of hit the ground running off the bat. Is there like a different resource or class, or is there like any tips that you recommend to kind of work our way up into this, rather than just kind of hitting the ground running off the bat?
I guess do you mean something like slower?
No, just like any supplemental resources that you like would recommend. Like I'm not sure how you kind of started off your career, but like I'm very, very new to this. Like I just touched on like basics of like front end, and then got into this. So I was just kind of wondering if there's anything that you kind of could recommend for like a super newbie.
Francisco, you added a PDF, that book, that crash course for Python.
Right.
Sorry, I'm still on chapter 1, but I thought it was super useful.
Yes. Did you get that book as well, Luis?
Yeah, I just said.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so that book is a good way to start. I myself didn't like reading that much when I first started, especially when it came to code. But that was just when I first started. So this is what I did, and I'm not saying that you should go out there and do it. This is 100% up to you. But what I did is I actually started off learning coding in Code Academy. And so it's sites like Code Academy and free Code Camp. I'm not sure if you, so maybe I missed it.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, so free Code Camp as well. And in those two places, that's where I actually did most of my learning when it came to coding, before I attended one of the pre-work courses myself.
I see. Thank you.
Yeah, of course, no problem at all. If I were to choose between free Code Camp and and then there's another one called Python for Everybody that I've never seen before. Thank you, Matthew. Yeah, and then if I had to choose between free Code Camp and Code Academy, you kind of get what you put in, right? Because Code Academy is obviously cost some money, but it's definitely you have a better interaction with what they're showing you, and it works more efficiently and step by step. And if you get stuck, it has solutions for you to look at so that you can see the difference between the solution and your code and how to fix it so that you could keep moving forward. But that's just my spiel about how I learned, and that was really productive for me. But the book itself is really, really good, and I wish that I would have read the book before going down the Code Academy and YouTube rabbit hole. Does that answer your question, Elise?
Yeah, totally. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, no problem at all. Awesome. I'm going to stop the recording, but if anyone has any other questions, I'm here.
I have a question.